Hello everyone, welcome back from the break. I hope you didn't bring drinks in here, because they're not allowed. No food or drink in the control room. So if you have, leave them out there, sit here, and let's talk about the third plugin of this mini video series. It's not mini, it's like 5 or 6 episodes, so it's already medium mini. So the next plugin I want to talk about is the Sonoris Mastering Compressor. Again, not because there's any sort of fascination with this Sonoris Mastering Compressor, but it's a plugin that I like to use and has features that I like from compressor plugins. Now, compressors are all around us. Even if you don't see them, they're all around us, especially in a recording studio. And there you usually see them. But what they do in the analog world is less surgical in a way for me and more tone related. While for compressors in the plugin world, I like to use stuff that, again, does not have a tone. Now, with compressors, this is really hard, because when you compress stuff, you're working in the time domain, and in the time domain, it's different than frequency stuff. You can always get some sort of tone or color out of any plugin. Your ear, your inner musical sense will pretty much detected, I think, at least for me, more than it would happen with equalizer. But this plugin, for example, has a lot of cool features that I like and I want to have handy every time I use a compressor plugin. It's labeled mastering, so we already know that things are gonna be subtle, things are gonna be not drastical usually, but this is a plugin, again, that blends some features from different plugs that I've seen around, but I have never seen them being together. So again, you have sets with a T and it's A and B. You can copy stuff around. You have the soft bypass. You have settings, so you can set up upsampling or non-upsampling. I can't seem to be able to spell that word in my head. Then you can output or monitor different side chains, and you have that feed forward or feedback styles. So you can choose even here what kind of compression color you want. Then you have either variable or highest link. So highest link is whoever comes first between left and right signals to the detector signal circuit is going to trigger the gain reduction. The variable one is an average or true stereo, some compressors call them detection circuit, which is then gonna go linked all the way up to 100%, where it's essentially a linked left and right behavior. But you also have mid-side split. Aha! This you don't have in many plugins, especially in compressors. So in this case, the compressor is split between mid and side. So you can set two types of compression. Now, I don't know if you know that, but a lot of mastering engineers in their secret dark life, private life of course, like to compress things very lightly between the mid and the side. So some of them, the evil ones or the good ones, I don't know, like to split a stereo compressor by feeding it not with left or right, but with mid and side. That way they can get a tight or tighter mid channel in mono and keep the sides breathing. Or the opposite, they can compress a side signal in a circuit where you have things that are too busy, and they can keep the mid channel, dynamic without having pump. So in this case, you can set the compressor to mid-side split. For now, we'll go with variable link, but then eventually I'll try and see if I can get a set B to work with mid and side. You have ratio, you have threshold, you have attack. Again, Sonoris have thought nicely to put an auto attack feature, and you have two knees. The knee one is the usually called soft knee, and the knee 2 is the gain reduction limiter. So you can tell the compressor, look, I don't want you to compress more than X. In this case, you don't have dBs. Sonoris puts a percentage value, but that's okay. Then filters. Even here you have a difference. You can set the filter to either off or high pass or band pass or low pass. This is critical for some parts of the signal or for single tracks. For example, for a singer, it can act like a de-esser. For drum overheads, it can act like a sort of warmth channel. Maybe you've seen it called that way in some analog outboard around there. So it's really cool. You can set a frequency and then you can have it for either a high pass, a band pass, or a low pass. Then you have makeup. and that's just straight makeup gain, but you have a button here that's gonna trigger second order harmonic, like even order harmonic distortion. So this is gonna be like a tube-ish kind of saturation. It's nice, and in mid side you can choose whether or not you want the mid and or the side channels to have that kind of saturation. So that's interesting. It's done, I have to say, elegantly. It's a color that's not too obvious and it's pretty cool. Then you also have a parallel slider. So you can set a compression value and then you can integrate the dry signal into what you are compressing. So you are not, it's backwards. You're putting the dry signal into this compressed signal. This is another technique that some mastering engineers use, again, in their very private and dark life. They like to reach loudness sometimes, which there's a loudness war is still out there, the discussion, blah, blah, blah. But you need to get masters very loud oftentimes. And that's clients, labels, who cares? I mean, we're not building nuclear missiles and testing them in some other country. We're just making music. So if people want it loud, it can be loud. It's going to maybe crash dynamics. So what mastering engineers do, they try and devise some ways to not get this ugly distortion. So parallel compression in a mix is something that can be, beneficial to get the density of the mix out there without crushing the peaks. It's also called upwards compression by some people. It's perfectly legit. You can use that word. Then we have output and then gain reduction, and then that's pretty much it. What I want to do now is listen again to this song. The song is still Freundschaft. I can't talk German, I have to talk English. So is a song made by producer duo Blackglass Production, and these two guys, Jonathan Gradmann and Robert Diekmann, have come here with their band and recorded this song during the Berlin Rec Meetup, which is a cool event that we've done here. And I keep telling you this, so you go and check it out because it was really cool. But this is a rough mix, no vocals, just music, and we go from verse to chorus to verse. And you'll hear in the chorus there's open wide guitars. So if you've heard the previous videos, you know this song already. Let's try and get a compression that works in a specific way. I'm gonna tell you before I shut up. I want to do something like I used to do with some Chandler compressors that would emulate the 2254s, something like that. These are compressors that could get really, really fast in the nanosecond range and have a fixed ratio of 6:1 and have an auto-release feature. I remember they were really, really nice to glue things together. So in theory, 50 nanoseconds, you're really, really crushing all the transients, but you have to hit it very lightly and then go up. Now, that is an analog device. We're not talking about that. Let's try and see how this guy reacts. And I'm just cheating. I tried it and it was nice. It was a clean but present way of compressing a mix. So I'll dial in the numbers and let's try and see how things work. Let's try feedback, feed forward. Again, the mystical moment of shutting up and letting the music talk. Now the needle is not even moving, but I hear there's a sort of vintage-ish kind of, I wouldn't call it vintage, but there's a density that the thing adds by just going very lightly, but with a ratio of 6:1. Let's try and get something out, like it would be on a sort of like gluing together, mixing, mastering stuff. This is not a vintage modeled compressor, so who knows? Let's try and see if we can get something out through that mid-side concept after I've set up the stereo field. Let's go. Okay, this is pretty cool. 1.7 to 1, we're compressing the side more than the mid in terms of threshold, but then we have a very fast attack on the side. So we're grabbing everything we can to make sure that the high frequencies of the acoustic guitars are kept in place. The knee is very soft. So as you can see, the blue line tells us that compression starts way earlier than minus 23.8. And we're going up with getting a little more makeup gain. So you can tell that the expanded stereo field is there without having like clear widener thing. And we can fine tune this thing up to our liking, of course. Now let's try and hear bypass in red again and engage in blue. I'm gonna try and engage the second order harmonics on the side and then the mid, and let's see. And then we're done. You can have the other break and go grab your food and drinks out of the control room and party on. Ciao. Alright, I hope this was useful to you. These are some of the features that I really like from compressor plugins. In this case, for the example, we use the Sonoris Mastering Compressor, but you get the idea about what kind of versatility I like from plugins that I cannot get from analog. This is the important thing I'm trying to translate to you. It's not about which user interface or which brand name I have in front of me. It's about what I can get to. And I like what analog can do. I want to do something different with plugins where analog cannot go to. Then with analog, I have other things that I like, but we're not talking about that. All right? Party on. Ciao.